before we get back to music, each week we get to introduce you all to somebody who has inspired others doing good work in their communities and beyond. Sometimes these are volunteers who've started with a small step, growing a simple idea into a full-fledged program that can have a huge impact. Other times it's somebody who's started big, an elected official, a celebrity, or a policymaker who can impact lots of people with his or her decisions. So that's the case this week, and here comes Helen to tell you about our next guest.
Thank you, Nick. Well, this week we get to welcome back an old friend. Former Colorado Governor Bill Ritter campaigned for governor in 2006 on a platform that included a real commitment to renewable energy. He was elected, served one term, and during his tenure, he signed over 50 bills into law that helped drive what he called the new energy economy. He's an author, lawyer, family man, and now the director of the Center for the New Energy Economy at Colorado State University. He's got a new book about the renewable energy revolution. It's called Powering Forward, and to tell us more about that and more, please welcome back to eTown, Governor Bill Ritter.
Welcome back. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Nick. Thanks.
I'm glad you're here. You've been at this a while. You've been talking about and studying about and learning about these issues about renewable energy and all of its various implications for a long time. I want to organize our chat into a few different chunks. The first one being, let's talk through some misinformation and some myths that kind of have stood in the way of progress. And a few of them I think are kind of obvious, like renewable energy being more expensive than fossil fuels. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, actually, they said it was going to cost way too much. They said that we couldn't load enough renewables onto the grid, that because they were intermittent, it was going to be really expensive and really awful, and we'd have to build all this transmission. They said that ratepayers would pay out to the nose. They said it would ruin other parts of our economy, that people would not move jobs into the state of Colorado because energy prices would be so expensive. And none of that turned out to be true. Yeah. And you have to fight a fight to do that. I was surrounded by this fantastic team of people who helped me with the vision, but also really bought into the program. Yeah. And we have wind energy now that's being sold on the Eastern Plains for less than 3 cents a kilowatt hour. But that's like a third of what it was because we built it out to scale. We had 270 megawatts of wind when I became governor. We have well over 3,000 megawatts now, moving toward 4,000. The price comes down. Farmers are making a bunch of money, and because they have wind turbines on their land, and you've got the price of solar coming down 80% in that same time frame. Yeah. So we have a vibrant clean energy economy. We have a lot of clean energy being produced here, but we've created an economy out of it in Colorado, and we're not the only state. This is something that's replicated around in other states.
But those myths, basically, that it cost too much, that it was not competitive, that was wrong, that it was a job killer, that was wrong. It's a job creator, in fact.
And we were also in the recession, the Great Recession, so it was difficult. But if we look back in retrospect now, we were right about that.
And what was the impact on somebody's utility bill, for example? They thought, oh man, this is going to cost a fortune for the consumer and it's going to be huge. What was the impact?
50 cents on every bill, 50 cents a month for the average ratepayer is all it is, so $6 a year.
Wow, that was the increase.
Yeah, that for that one Clean Air, Clean Jobs Act. Yeah. The other, but our rates are lower, cheaper than they are relative to the rest of the country than they were when we started this.
Right. Yeah.
So this is the myth and misinformation part of it. I'd say the misinformation part of it comes more on the climate change side, where we've been fed a lot of misinformation over the last decade, and has made this a far more of a political issue. And it's that combination of the myths on the clean energy side, the misinformation on the climate side, that make this then a political battle that we have to fight.
And let me just go back to your book for a second. Your book, which is called Powering Forward, it does really talk about the fact that this is going to be disruptive. This transition, nationwide, globally, is going to be disruptive.
Yeah, we built our economy really on coal-fired generation. We owe so much to the coal communities and the coal industry, our industrial prowess. You could argue the development of the middle class. Those are all part of us having abundant coal and building this industrial economy. And now it's being disrupted even as we speak. We're just the 10th largest producing state, but in the state to our north, Wyoming, it's the #1 producing state, and the 3 top coal producing companies are in bankruptcy. And they've lost on average 90% of their shareholder value over the last 4 years. So those are daunting numbers for communities to figure out. And we owe those communities, we owe the families, 3 and 4 generations of coal miners, we owe them a debt of gratitude, but also to try and make that transition as least disruptive as possible.
Yeah. By transferring other jobs and other technologies into those communities to make sure that the economic impact is minimized.
Yeah, and I always say, I start by saying, listen to them first. You know, don't just think that there's some program we're going to bring in and they're going to pick it up and this is great. But listen to what those communities think they can do, why they don't want to relocate somewhere, the kinds of workforce education that can make a difference in their lives, and then develop it with them. And we're actually talking to some pretty serious policymakers about how we do this in the least disruptive way, and what I would say the most just way to have that transition happen.
So we talked about some of the misconceptions and the myths, misinformation. We talked about the fact that there are opportunities for this to really have a positive impact economically. What's standing in the way? Let's talk a little bit about the obstacles.
We politicized it. One of my favorite sentences in this book is, there's a moral case to act on climate change. How we do that is, in some respects, a science question and a policy question. It should have never become political. And we've made it political. So there's a lot of, the United States Senate, the United States House of Representatives, they're the last 2 bodies in the world, political bodies, that actually are arguing that climate change is not real and not human caused. And if they, would get on the program with the rest of the world, we have all sorts of things we could do that are policy oriented, that actually lend to what we call market certainty. Because we have some difficulty once in a while financing this stuff, because the financial community is looking to say, I don't have market certainty. We got a Senate and a House that don't believe this.
Yeah, but fossil fuel companies are recognizing this opportunity. Xcel Energy is recognizing this opportunity. So if it makes business sense, it's common sense, it's a moral issue, you say, because as a practicing Catholic, you see this as part of your obligation to future generations to try your best on behalf of the planet. So this stuff makes such sense. Is it literally just Congress that's standing in the way?
No, not at all.
It's money in politics, it's lobbying. What's the problem?
Well, it's in the concluding chapter, I was trying to think about how to conclude this book, and we concluded it by talking about campaign finance. Because if you're a big player, a big incumbent, and you're a fossil fuel company, you give a lot of money to office holders, and those office holders feel a certain indebtedness, and so they can wind up blocking things that we should be doing. And so there is this relationship with that. So there is incumbency. There is, the United States Chamber of Commerce has never met a clean energy idea that they liked, and they were really difficult for me to deal with at that level. The United States Chamber of Commerce, our Metro Chamber of Commerce, was much better. So there's people in the business community, there are businesses themselves that really try and tie themselves to certain people in public office and then cause that to be the place where the policy part's blocked. The good news on this is there are big businesses that are saying, we're going to demand that our power come from clean portfolios. And you get enough big businesses saying, we're requiring this. If you're Google or you're Intel or big businesses like that, they're saying that will cause this shift to happen, even at the political level, that will give us the ability to see a policy shift. This transition's happening. 195 countries agreed at the Paris Accords that we need to move on this. Clean energy is a part of that. And that makes for a market opportunity where we as United States of America, we're innovators, we're inventors, and we have a real ability to grow the global clean energy economy and participate in that in a really positive way.
But for people who are listening on the radio, this issue is a critical one, and the time is now. This is not something we can push down kick down the road for future generations. So what's your advice, other than, you talk about reforming the political system so we get money out of politics? What else can people actually do?
Well, I would say second to that, and it's also a political, issue, and that's my bias, is vote. This is the majority will, but there's something else happening in Washington, D.C., so people have to provide some political intensity to this issue in order for the transition at the political level to happen. We are capable of really getting to that place where we can be zero emitters in, I'd say, less than 30 years.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, congratulations on all your work so far. Congratulations on your new book and the work you're doing at Colorado State University. You're easy to find if people want to Google. You're accessible online. Governor Bill Ritter has been a champion of this issue for a long time. Thanks for doing this hard work.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you for all your work, and Helen. Thank you. God bless you.
Governor Bill Ritter, the book, Powering Forward.